Would you get in a car when you were younger with your dad?
Oh my gosh, yeah. We've done handbrake turns around roundabouts. Sorry, I know that's incredibly illegal and you might have to cut that out. I have never actually watched Top Gear.
Idiots, bagging, yes.
I've known Jeremy and James my whole life. James to me is almost like one of my uncles, I guess.
Uncle James,
Uncle James.
Hammond, you idiot, man!
It's quite weird growing up with that and that being his job.
What was that like? Did you ever find that frustrating? Your dad saying that he didn't think that he was around a lot. It seems to be, he's almost making up for a little bit of lost time. Do you see it that way? You kind of thought that was what you were going to fall into. Did you have any idea?
No. You get really used to being looked at. They're obviously looking at Rich, but I'm stood next to him, so they're looking at me by proxy. You are very much aware that there are eyes on you.
There's enough for you to see that it's alarming.
Things like the crash, which must have had like quite a significant impact on you.
I was actually in the car with my mum when we got the call. We had one call from Andy Willman saying what happened, but very much like, it's okay, it's fine, but this has happened. Then it's when Jeremy then called and...
Well, thank you for making me a cup of tea this morning. You gave me a lecture straight away when I asked for a couple of sugars and then told me that you'd only made that change 2 days ago, as I think it's the 2nd of Jan. So.
Yeah, because new year, new me, you know?
Well, I'm not changing my sugar in my tea. However, thank you for joining me in the back of the van studio. We're outside the Smallest Cog this morning. It's absolutely freezing, so thank God that we've got some heating. But the first question that I like to pose to every guest that sits in the seat opposite me is, Izzy, in your own words, who are you and what do you do?
That's a great question. I love that. I'm Izzy Hammond. I guess I'm a content creator these days. In the automotive world. I tend to say I drive cars and I yap. That's kind of my job, really. And then I also do a bit of podcasting like yourself. I talk about men's mental health with my father, which is good fun. But yeah, I do a bit of everything, really.
That's a topic that I'm sure would confuse pretty much anyone, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's pretty random.
I think if anyone looked at mine, they'd come out with a pretty blank face wondering what to say about it. No matter what someone thinks, you must have grown up absolutely surrounded by cars.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, my whole life has been sort of... I mean, they've just always been there. But I guess because they've always been there, I haven't noticed them until more recently, I think. Because my dad getting Top Gear, like the timeline is exactly the same as me being born. So he got the job when I was 1, I think. Got the big phone call saying, you've got the job. Tears, champagne, all of that. And from then it just...
That's a lot to remember at 1.
Yeah, I was there in my high chair with my little glass. No, it wasn't. I had no idea. But yeah, I guess they just have run synonymously. So as his career's gone on, I've sort of grown up, and as the job's got bigger and surrounded his life more, it's surrounded my life more. And it's all I've ever known, really, because I guess I get questions a lot, what's it like growing up with a famous dad or like a TV presenter dad? And the honest truth is I just don't know any different. It's what I've always known. And we've kind of, I guess we've navigated it together because he's never done it before. He came from, like a very normal life in Birmingham with 2 brothers. He has no idea. So I guess we kind of learnt together, which has been quite nice.
Did you enjoy that side of things growing up though? As you said, you didn't know any different, but did you ever get frustrated by having that as kind of your experience with friends that maybe had it slightly different from your perspective, not someone looking in? What was that like? Did you ever find that frustrating?
I think we're really lucky because where we come from, you've been to visit now Herefordshire. It's the middle of nowhere. So I don't know, you didn't really have the whole people trying to be your friend for the wrong reason. I've never really experienced that, I don't think. But I guess more in the sense that sometimes you'd see, families go bowling, let's say, or, go for lunch or go for supper all together, and that's just not something that we could do. And I guess when I was younger, I didn't really get that. And when you're walking around the streets and people are, you get really used to being looked at. And that sounds a bit odd because they're not looking at me. They're obviously looking at Rich, but I'm stood next to him. So they're looking at me by proxy, if you get what I mean. But it's just that constant, you are very much aware that there are eyes on you. So I guess you learn how to behave quite quickly as a child.
I was very kindly invited to DriveTribe Live in the summer, which is where I first ever got to see you. Didn't get a minute to talk, even though everyone was upstairs in the room, and I went there with my friends too that day. However, I could clearly see, and it's really nice when I have a guest on, that I've been able to watch some of their past, or like be able to refer to some of their past, or have seen things. It's not just like a fresh start from here today in the van. And I did notice at that day, like just watching how if other had to move around that event was an eye-opener to me, because I've been friends with some very famous YouTubers, for argument's sake, that are doing very well in that space. But that was just like a whole nother level that I've never seen before. Yeah. And it did make me think of you, and it made me think like, wow, I understand now you've said it that that's all you've ever known, but is that actually like enjoyable? So like where did you get your happiest moments growing up? Where was the most enjoyment? Where did that come from?
That's a good question. There's probably there probably actually are like quite a few memories in cars. We had this old Defender that had
it's always Defenders, isn't it? Turned up in a Defender this morning.
Just live and breathe Defenders. No, that we had this old Defender that we used to drive around in, and it had 3 seats in the front, so me and my sister could sit with my dad all in the front, which was always really sweet. And I remember he took us once to Toys R Us, and we bought, those like electric little Jeep things, the tiny ones that you sit in when you're like 8. And we went and bought them, and we put them in the back of the car, and we drove home, and it was just the most exciting day ever, because me and Wills, my sister, were going to get to do what he did, and obviously drove them. I mean, I could parallel park at 6. I can't now, but I could at 6. And I guess it's kind of, I always think it must be frustrating for my mum, because probably some of my happiest memories are ironically with my dad, because he wasn't there that much, because he was filming. And that's the biggest thing for me. Like when people say, what was it like him doing his job when you were growing up? The fact is, it just meant he wasn't there a lot. And that's all I really knew growing up, was just he went away to work. Like when they did the North Pole, or was it the South Pole? It was one of the poles they did, that special. I think he was gone for over a month. And he wasn't meant to be gone for a month. I think their plane couldn't take off because it was too icy or whatever. And I didn't know that he was on a dog sled, like camping in the middle of, I didn't know that. I just knew that he was away. So I guess I must be kind of frustrated for my mum, because then my happiest memories, a lot of them are when the rare moments that he's home and I got to spend with him. But yeah, I mean, this is sounding like I had some awful childhood. I really didn't at all. And I think my parents were really good at navigating, because they had no idea what was going to happen, but they were very good at sort of drip feeding information. So we'd know a bit what he was doing, but not enough to worry us, because most of the time they were doing stupid stuff that we really shouldn't know about.
I think it's really nice that you kind of say to everyone else, like, don't worry. Like, I'm not saying that I didn't have a nice growing up, but I do understand, especially from everybody that I speak to, that what's fascinating when you get to sit down with someone in the van is their life's very different from their perspective to what it is from someone else's perspective looking in. And you might have things that you'd have never even thought of, or, a million people would have never considered, that is actually something that was really profound for you growing up. And I did actually read, but you got to be so careful with what you read when you do guest research. And for your episode, it was completely different, because the sources that were coming up were much less reliable than normal ones. But I did actually read things like, your dad saying that he didn't think that he was around a lot when you were growing up, etc. But obviously you can see now that the time that you're spending together, the videos that you're making for DriveTribe, the podcast, all the rest of it, it seems to be that it's almost making up for a little bit of lost time, it seems. Do you see it that way? Yeah,
definitely. I think that's kind of the best, that's what we'll both say, I think, is the best part of being able to work together now is, like you said, I'm kind of getting to know him in a really different way, which I actually think is quite universal for people when you get into your 20s, because obviously you become an adult within your own right, you move out, you have your own life. And I find, like we've spoken about this before on the podcast with a couple of guests, you almost like reintroduce to your parents as fellow adults. And like I remember really thinking, oh, they're actually doing life for the first time as well. That makes a lot of sense. They're not, because when you're growing up, they're like the oracle. they're like everything. They know everything. They have all the answers. And then I guess you get a little bit older and you realise they really don't. They don't really know what they're doing.
That's a really unique perspective, actually.
Well, and I think for me, obviously, I'm lucky because I work so closely with him, and I can go to him for advice on so much professionally because he's done it before and he's done it quite well. So he's quite a good one to go to. But yeah, it's just really nice. And like you said, just spending time together, it's really nice.
But what was life like for you growing up? That aside, what was the things that you enjoyed? What was shaping you and moulding you growing up? Because now you can see that the passion that you have for all things automotive and understanding and learning and figuring out and tinkering and yapping and all those sorts of things that are in your DNA are bursting out, whether you've suppressed them for years or not. But who were you between like your earliest years, like between when you can first start to have like memories and maybe like 10?
Gosh. I think I've always been a very outdoorsy person. Like I said, we live in the middle of nowhere. So it's always been loads of animals. So been, I think, riding horses since I was about 3 maybe. And proper like fearless 3-year-old. Like would jump on my little Shetland pony and just go for it. Yeah, always outside. I love chaos, really, to be honest. And I guess growing up with, actually more than like Top Gear, it was Brainiac, a show that he did years ago, where they did a lot of the filming at home. So I just remember there being like people everywhere all the time, big cameras, a lot of blokes, because that was when media was very blokey. So just everywhere and just carnage. And I just loved it. As like a little kid, it was just, for me, that was the best thing ever. So I guess people, like growing up around a lot of people, and because the way I kind of fell into what I'm doing now is kind of random. I got a drama scholarship to my senior school. So for me, I thought that was going to be the way forward. I did like the whole drama
So you were confident
thing.
growing up then?
Yeah, I think so. Confident in weird ways. I think confident. I used to, yeah, if you could put me on a stage, I'd kind of love it. I'm a bit like my dad. I like being the centre of attention. I don't know if you can tell. But then quite anxious in other ways. I think socially sometimes quite anxious. But in front of a big group of people like that, I'd be fine. So I did the whole drama scholarship thing. And then I guess got to sort of 16 and you become a teenager and then suddenly you're a bit like, oh no, actually that's a bit terrifying. I don't think I want to do that. And then got a little bit more shy, I think, as a teenager. And then, so instead I went down the writing route. So both my parents are writers, really. They have both written a book together and write their own things. So then I did English as a degree because I kind of thought that was what I was going to fall into.
But up to there, you said there, you kind of thought that was what you were going to fall into. Yeah. Did you have any idea?
No. Honestly, no. I didn't have an interest in this world. I didn't really think I had an interest in cars. I think I must have deep down just because I've been around them my whole life and they've shaped my life so much. But I didn't consciously think, gosh, I love these vehicles.
There was a video I was watching on the way here. It actually stopped when I got to Herefordshire and my phone signal went to like 1 bar. Yeah, but it was posted yesterday on DriveTribe and it was you and your dad out in the Mini, which is completely frozen just behind us against the fence, out on track. And he looked with the most genuine, undramatized look I've ever seen and was like, where has this been in you? Like, this is real. Like, she's loving this and lapping it up and loving the cars. Did you, when you were younger and up until going to university and everything, have any resentment for automotive and cars? A, because it meant that your dad wasn't always around because of it, but also things like the crash, which must have had like the first one, which must have had like quite a significant impact on you and the family growing up.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it was something that I did think about a few years ago. I don't think I had resentment towards it. I just think it was something that just wasn't for me. That was his job. That was his thing. And for me, it was just cars were the thing, like you said, that took him away from home. And that meant he was working. And I guess with the crash, for me, obviously the crash affected all of us in varying different ways. I think I was 7. And it would more so not just the crash, it was more the recovery, I think, that really was the thing that affected us as a family, because everyone talks about the crash and how it was massive and scary, but it was more that he was absolutely doolally for months and months afterwards. He was just not with it at all. And so I just have a lot of, it's almost like gaps in memory of him as a dad, because for a long time he just wasn't. He was barely a human, like he could barely function. And so he was trying to relearn how to be a human being, let alone be a father figure. So I guess that was just time. But for me, the biggest thing that I think is like locked in my head from the crash is whenever, because I've started driving on track a little bit now.
I've seen you out with Abby.
Yeah, and I love it. But in my head, I just do have this knowledge that things do go wrong and they can go wrong because I've seen it go wrong. And okay, they're very different. He was in a jet car going, I don't know, nearly 300 miles an hour.
But he's crashed in other things too.
He has. He's done a lot of that. But for me, it's just this, I know it can go wrong. So there's always that little bit of trepidation, I guess. But yeah, it never made me, I never hated cars. I guess it was like, yeah, they took him away from me and nearly took him away from me for good. So...
And it's really difficult, that what you say, because I've experienced, my mum lost her dad, that was my granddad. It was a very prolonged experience. I'm sure anybody listening that's lost family and probably has lost family has experienced different ways of kind of losing them. My mum lost my granddad in a very prolonged period over years, and it was horrible, like the decline of his health. But when I lost my dad, it was instantaneous, unknown, just one day experience. But if I was in a position which is completely almost different, which is what you're saying, which is like you're in this limbo, which you just don't have a clue what's going on. I can imagine that's just hell. Because when someone's ill or hurt, you just want answers, don't you?
Yeah.
Or you want answers all the time. It sounds like that was a period of life where there just wasn't many answers.
Yeah, and I think when, obviously, like I said, I mean, I was only 7. So ironically, I have the most ridiculous memories from it. So my mum used to change my birthday quite a lot. Because my birthday's September, and they would always start filming Top Gear in September. So they'd always be on track. Like, it was quite a brutal schedule. So my mum would just change my birthday because, I mean, what do I know? I'm like 5, 6, 7 years old. I just know if my mum says it's my birthday tomorrow, it's my birthday tomorrow. So she'd move it back or forward to make sure that he was there. And it was one of the years where...
Variable birthday.
Literally,
I think that's the first time I've ever heard that. But what a good idea.
Quite clever. So she'd moved it that year. I think she'd pushed it back a little bit because he was filming, which meant he had the crash. And then like a day or so later, it was what I thought was my birthday. And obviously we weren't told what happened to him because no one really knew. He was in a coma at that point. So I just have this ridiculously spoilt brat memory of waking up and going downstairs and being like, well, where is everyone? It's my birthday. Like, this day is all about me. And obviously there was no one there because I think I had my grandparents there. And then they were obviously all in the hospital with him. But little 6, 7-year-old me was like, guys, what's going on? It's my birthday. And then I remember having a little mini birthday party in the hospital up in Leeds because my mum was trying to keep things as normal as possible for me and my sister.
Bless her.
And there was like all my little cousins and I was like, amazing, all my cousins are here. And then I'm like, why are all my cousins here? And it's like, oh, because their dads are like in the room with my dad, like making sure he's like hoping he's going to be okay. Little 7-year-old me is like, this is amazing, my cousins are here. So that was a bit weird. Like, it's kind of warped the memory that I have. And then obviously he was in hospital for a while. So
what you're saying is it didn't really get real until a few weeks after.
Yeah. And I guess because no one knew what was happening. Like, he was in a coma. His vitals weren't brilliant. No one knew what was going to happen. So everyone was just trying to, keep it as normal as possible. And then obviously he came out of the coma and he was okay. And then it was a long recovery, but then now he's fine.
And how would you deal with that growing up? Because you've mentioned like your mum's obviously a huge part of your life and she's always there, has been there as your constant by the sound of things, and you've got your sister right as well. But what were like friends like? Who were the kind of friends that you developed with growing up? Were they also like outdoorsy people? You all riding horses together? Have you managed to maintain this group of friends? Or do you find yourself, when you become more of a content creator and you're doing things, suddenly being friends way more with people that live on the other side of the UK, like Dati with her Land Rover and stuff like that? Do you find it's changed quite a bit for you?
I think I'm really lucky because, like I said, where I grew up, we're all very close. We're all still very close. I live in London with 2 people that I've grown up with.
You live in London?
I live in London.
I thought your whole personal brand and personality is based around this little country bumpkin that trots around Herefordshire. So what
Sorry.
a revelation. What's that like coming from the
Sorry,
country
yeah.
to the city?
Burst the bubble. No, I always wanted to go to London. I think a lot of people that come from tiny places in the middle of nowhere love them, but also would quite like to leave them at some point for a little bit. So yeah, I've been in London for just over a year now. But to be honest, I spend most of my time here because like the workshops here, my cars that I have now and love working on here. So I'm often here. I just spend my life on the M4, really just going back and forward.
And you do really enjoy that kind of city lifestyle from being in the country. So I hate it. I can't do it. We drive this van into the city and try and find somewhere to park up, and I'm like, get me out of here and back to the cows.
I quite like having both. I think I've literally got the dream, like to be able to go in and out. I think is great. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that you spend a lot of your time here, and that's because a lot of the work that you've been doing recently and gets posted is with DriveTribe. I've been really enjoying seeing you and previous guest of the podcast, Mr. Mike Fernie, have this relationship that I can't really describe, but it's like brother and sister a little bit, and I kind of see the banter in that way. And I absolutely love the video where you both went to Clarkson's farm in the morning, just completely gave up on it, were like, this is rubbish, and then just went down to May's pub. Do you remember the first time that you ever did your first kind of motoring video or something with DriveTribe?
That's a good question. I think it was probably the pickup truck video. Well, there was a couple. I did one pickup truck video like years and years ago where I was sat in the front and Willow was sat in the back, and we weren't allowed to speak because the whole idea was that we're these like moody teenagers, and Rich was kind of showing off in this pickup truck. So the whole time we just had to have our headphones in and like look down and just pretend to be really moody. And I remember there was so many comments and people saying like, oh my gosh, like why are they so rude? Like why are they not speaking? I was like, guys, this is not real. This is not real at all. But since then, a couple of years later, I then drove a similar pickup truck just in our fields. And this is the first time I'd driven something quick, like with a lot of power behind it. And so we were just in the field and Rich was like, do you want to eat some donuts or something? And I was like, yeah, like why not? I mean, I'd literally never done that before. I've never like played around with a car. Obviously, I've like driven like car since I was 17, but I'd never like played with them like I've seen him do and seen like other people do. So we just gave it a go, and I was like, yeah, no, this is sick.
Got that little adrenaline rush.
I want to do this every day.
Maybe that was the moment.
I think it might have been, and also, yeah, I guess, yeah, just having the confidence to do it. I always find it's quite easy to have the confidence when he's sat next to me, because not only is he very good in the automotive world, he's done quite well and has driven a lot, but he's also just my dad. So if your dad's sitting next to you, it does give you that confidence to like give it a go. And for me, what's nice with DriveTribe now is I'm feeling that confidence when I'm on my own. And there was, like you said, with that track day video that we just filmed with the two of us, for quite a bit of the video was on track on my own in the car. And I've never done that. I've never been on track alone completely. And I felt just as confident, even like maybe even more confident now, because I'm like, okay, I've got my own thoughts. I can do this. I back myself.
Is that from the moment you leave the pits? Because with any track with me, I always get that thing where I'm like, I'm going down the pit lane. I'm like, right, here we go. Right, done no mistakes. And then the second I cross that white line and get up into like it's like gone. Yeah. It's like that sense of fear was just gone. Yeah. Is that like, can you relate to that?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess I say definitely, I'm still very much a beginner. And that's something I really want to stress.
You looked furious when he beat your time on track in that video.
And I tell you why. Obviously, he was going to beat me. He has a lot more experience than I do. But he had just done his practices, and then it was fresh in his mind. He'd just done some hot laps, and then I got out the car and he did his time. So it was fresh. It'd be like a good hour since I'd been in there. And then I had to go and just do mine. So I was a bit like, I feel like that's a bit unfair.
Does that make you genuinely now like want to beat?
I'm so competitive.
I can see it.
And a lot more competitive than he is. He really isn't. He actually doesn't. He'd probably rather I beat him in that, because then he could be super proud. Whereas otherwise he's just like, he's never been a particularly competitive person ever. I don't know where it comes from. I'm like insanely competitive. Like, I will think about that for a long time, the fact that I lost.
But you mentioned just before, because we're talking about how you got there onto the camera of DriveTribe, driving around a track. You actually mentioned that the first video you appeared in, which I remember, which was in the back of a pickup truck. But earlier you said how you learnt that, or your insight of parents are also doing it for the first time. So the three of the boys obviously at the start founded DriveTribe, and it's now very much, your dad has taken over a lot of that now. But those videos that they were posting for the first time, there's a comment section on YouTube and it's very visible. Like all the years of TV, whether it be for Amazon or BBC or whoever, there's no like comment section under the TV or on the phones. They used to mention letters and stuff in a jokey way. But it gets very real when you see what kind of people start to comment. How did you take when people would comment on those initial videos? Because by the way, it doesn't matter whether it's you or anyone. I've noticed the first time anyone appears on a channel that viewers are used to seeing somebody else on, people hate change and they just go, no, go away. Yeah. It's happened to me on friends' channels. It's happened to lots. And then eventually people just get a little bit more used. But what was that like to deal with when you could see that sort of thing for the first time?
Yeah, that's such a good way of putting it as well, because like you said, they didn't really have to deal with that. They didn't really have the whole social media thing that we have now. I find YouTube's actually quite nice. Like, people on YouTube are actually really great. The place I really don't like is TikTok. I find TikTok terrifying.
Yeah.
So I don't post on there. I don't want anything to do with that. Instagram, it can kind of, it's okay. I don't really look at comments, if I'm honest. I just don't, it's not going to help me. It's just going to make me sad. But most of the time, people are really nice.
I've noticed this strange thing. I don't know whether it's right or not. Could even be backed up by data. But the higher retention based the video is for the TikTok generation, the more negativity it seems to come. And DriveTribe videos sit in this kind of field between being really relaxed and kind of old school filmy and modern age era high retention text on the screen every 2 seconds to make sure the graph flattens out like that. Maybe because it sits there, you get kind of the 50-50 effect. But did you think that you would get more pushback just because it's so easy to be like, oh, she's only on there because, did you think there'd be more than what there has been?
Yeah, definitely. 100%. And I think every time we put a video out, I can never gauge whether it's going to, like, which way it's going to go. And sometimes people are so lovely, like insanely nice. And I'm a bit like, really? Do you really think that? I mean, I'm really not that great. I'm really not. And then sometimes you get the other 50%, which is, you get a lot of Nepo baby stuff, a lot of, why are you here? Why are you doing this? Which, like, is so understandable. You know, you have a right to comment whatever you like. But it's interesting what videos that happens on and what videos that doesn't happen on. And I can't, but it's like why Mike Fernie is so good at what he does. Like, he's like a YouTube genius. He just knows and understands how YouTube works and the algorithms and what makes things do well and what doesn't. And I don't get it. I do my thing, I do my driving, I do my chatting, and I just let people, you can think what you want.
Well, a little insight for like the whole audience and you, I guess, but I'm sure Mike's explained it. But like, for a YouTube video to do well, for it to achieve any views, like, doesn't matter if the channel's got 2 million subscribers like DriveTribe. It's literally about the first people that click on that video, how many of them get to the end of the video. If it can see on the retention graph, there's your box. And for people listening, if you just imagine like a box with a straight line going across it, the straighter the line and the higher up it is on the graph, the better the video is going to do. So that's someone coming in and getting to the end.
Right.
If someone comes in and it goes down at an angle like that, that's people falling off really quickly. That then leads to less minutes watched. That then leads to less watch time per viewer. The video doesn't get pushed as much. So when a video does 300k or 400k or 1 million views, it's because a lot of those viewers, there is other tiny little factors that come into it as well, but it's because a lot of those viewers are getting to the end of the video, so then YouTube can put more ads on them and earn more money. So a video really will only perform. So it's like, it's all well and good someone saying that video is only doing well because so-and-so is so-and-so. Okay, that might result in a click, initially, but no one else would see it if YouTube didn't want to give it to them. So people will only have videos that do well if people actually watch them from the start to the finish. And if you're going to get someone in this day and age with the TikTok generation to give you 20 minutes of their time to watch a piece of content of you yapping or screaming and thinking, right, this is getting high pitched now, or whatever, they had to have watched it, is my point, to the end or most of that video. And you're only going to give someone that time if you actually find the content enjoyable.
It's such a complicated world, isn't it? Why do we do it?
Well, that's the question, because I guess that was the next thing I was going to ask is you brushed off there, very good at brushing everything off, but you brushed off there and used the word Nepo baby, and you've seen comments like that. Where was the first time that you had to be kind of tough, and learn to deal with that kind of thing? 'Cause you brushed it off as if it was nothing, but is it nothing?
Honestly, yeah. It's just such a difficult one. I don't know what. It's like I don't really know what to say. Like, what do you want me to do? When like these people are commenting that, do you want me to stop? Okay, how's that gonna? I don't think that's gonna solve anything. I know how lucky I am. I know how lucky I am to have been born into the world that I've been born into, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. But for me, it's like if I have a passion in the same thing that my dad has a passion for, why wouldn't I give it a go? And I think, like, my dad talks about the luck thing all the time. It was luck that got him his job, and it was luck that got him the opportunities, but he was the one that made those opportunities stick, and he used the luck to get him where he is now. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to use my luck and see if I can make it work. And if I can't, I can't, and that's fine. But I'm going to give it a go. And I'm sorry, people, if you don't like that, but I'm going to try. But
you make your own good luck at the end of the day as well by giving things a go. Do you vary much? What's the difference between like you, your sister and your mum?
So my sister is horses. She is so we both obviously grew up riding horses.
It's like having Land Rovers, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you can't get planning permission to live in Herefordshire if you don't have a Land Rover Defender or a horse.
Or a horse. It's slightly ridiculous. And like I'm lucky to live in this little bubble of the world because it is so ridiculously sort of idyllic. It's insane. But yeah, my sister is horse mad. We're kind of split down the middle. So my mum and my sister horses, and then me and my dad cars. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting dynamic. But yeah, no, she's all horses. She works with horses. She's at uni studying horses, and that's the world she wants to go into.
Have you had your scariest experiences on four wheels or four legs?
Probably four legs. Yeah, because they've got their own brains.
Do you struggle to get on the horse?
I struggle to get in cars, honestly.
I want to show everyone watching this photo that I screenshotted on the way up here whilst watching a video, because anyone that grew up like me, thankful for the fact that the trio existed and take your minds off rubbish and the world and everything, could just enthrall yourself in pleasure watching TV of stupidity most of the time, will know that Hammond's not that big. And I've got this screenshot here when they swap positions. But is that because the seat of your Mini is so far forward and so far up?
Honestly, so when we did the Mini day, so the first Mini day we did with Abby Eaton, and on the same day we did the McLaren video as well, just to keep costs down. It's a clever way of thinking. Thank you, Mike Fernie. So we did both of them on the same day. And so it was the first time I'd driven my Mini since we'd done all the mods to it, because Rich was the one that took it out with the Napa guys. I didn't. So this was my first time driving it since it'd been souped up, buzzing, all ready. All the cameras are set, helmets are on, we're getting in the car, I sit on the seat, I am nowhere near the pedals. I mean, like my toe is not even touching them and my hands can't reach the steering wheel. And I just looked at Abby, I was like, what are we gonna do here? Take everything out. The McLaren guys had brought 3 mechanics with them in case
I've heard they do
the beautiful McLaren brakes. We had these amazing guys that are used to working on like these beautiful cars come fiddle with my Mini and have to yank my Mini seat forward because it got lodged the wrong way. There's 3 of them. They're like upside down in this Mini, like legs flying out the window, yanking the seat forward. We get as far forward as we can. I sit in it. I still can't reach. So then I'm going around the crew and getting them all to take, it's freezing, by the way, we're in Wales. They all have to take all their jackets off and their jumpers, and I have to sit on like a pile of maybe 6, like under, behind, just so I can reach. And then, because obviously it's a bucket seat, I'm then not actually in the bucket. So it's the most uncomfortable. I'm just flung across the car because I'm just too... Cars weren't built for me. Cars were not built for me.
Well, maybe Minis back in the day, but if you're experiencing a Mini that's kind of too small, then there is really going to be a bit of a challenge.
My first car was a Mini, and I had to have a booster seat every single time I drove it at the age of 17. So that was pretty embarrassing.
That's pretty...
It's not great.
We won't go there. Do you watch that content after it goes live? And then who do you watch it with? Do you share the videos with your family when you're done? Who watches it and tells you? What's that like?
Well, I tend to watch it before it goes out and make sure it's all right. I just sort of say, yeah, looks good to me. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really share it with friends and stuff. I think maybe like my closest friends will watch it like purely for support, I guess. And just like I would support them with what they do as a job. But other than that, no, I think I kind of, because I guess when you make that transition from like you actually go for it with the content creating, you've always got that in the back of your head, like, is this going to be embarrassing? Like, are my friends going to think, what are you doing? Like, that's so cringy. Why are you doing that? So I guess I didn't want to like scream and shout about it to start with. Whereas now I'm kind of getting into it a bit more. I'm enjoying it a bit more. And I've kind of gone over that line of like, actually, I don't care. This is embarrassing. I love it. And I want to do it. And I want to continue doing it. So I'm just going to go with it.
Will you ever get a photo on a Sunday night ding through on WhatsApp or something and your dad going like, watching it?
Yeah. Every so often. But people are so lovely. People are always so positive about it. You know, like the people that I know. So I'm just going to carry on until they're not.
So growing up, when it comes to watching content, was there like, did you have the big Sunday night sit round for every episode with the family kind of thing? Did that happen or not?
We really didn't. I have never actually watched Top Gear. I've never watched... Yeah, I've seen a couple of specials.
Same with the Grand Tour?
I've seen all of the Grand Tour. But
and what do you think the difference is, the both, when they're posted? Timeline of years?
What do you mean? Is it
like you'd have been younger when Top Gear was on?
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, like I know it's not directed at boys, and it is technically a family show, and it had the 8 p.m. slot on a Sunday, so it had to be family. But I do think it was very much more a boy thing, and I think that's probably more reflective of the car world in general, and that it's only now, I guess, increasingly becoming more open to girls. But I think, yeah, all my boy mates would always watch Top Gear, but my girl mates wouldn't. And if we're in public, the people coming up to Rich, it's boys.
Would you have to say to your boy mates, would they ask when you were growing up, oh, what's the next special? Where did they go? What was that like? How would you answer that? Would you be like, I just don't know. Like, all I know is the call started with this.
Yeah, I think I'd sort of just play it off, I guess. It was, a lot of the times it would be, where are they going on the next special? And most of the time I didn't know. But if I did know, sometimes, I'll share some secrets. Why not?
Yeah, you're not contracted for anything, is it?
Yeah, I know the Stig.
Because we're gonna open that door. That's a great question, because obviously Ben Collins has now come into... What is that noise? Oh, is it a truck? Oh, right. I was like, is that the heater going away? I was like, is that the heater? Is it coming through?
Man, it's like...
Slightly. However, I think it adds to the ambience that there's a noise of a truck outside, because it's all hustling and bustling. And there was actually told that health and safety are coming to visit the Smallest Cog today. So I think that's why everybody is kind of in on their desk, because that's happening. But you just mentioned, like, yeah, I know who the Stig was. Luckily, I got to know Ben Collins, and one of the best days of my existence was when he invited me to drive the original blue Suzuki Liana round the Top Gear track against my friend Matt head to head. And like, you're there and like, oh, this is like hollow ground, like just bending down like this on the line, like taking in everything. The smell is like more senses when you're in somewhere that you've admired like that. But is that true? Did you know the gang growing up? Did you like have that experience around them? Where would you see them? Like, was there like a Christmas party, or I get the sense they wouldn't all go to it together?
Yeah, I knew Ben growing up a bit, but I didn't know that he used to Stig. So I think this is true, and he's going to have to tell me if it's not, but I think he had one of our kittens. So we had a cat that had a load of kittens, and I think he had one of the kittens. So he like came to the house and picked it up and whatever, and I just knew him as Ben, but I had no idea that he was a Stig. But I do remember going to the track when they were filming, and like I'm going to call it their green room, but it was just it's like a dodgy, just sort of shed.
I've seen the buildings.
Yeah.
They are literally falling to pieces.
Yeah. And they always were. And the Stig had a little room, and I always remember this little room, and it was just terrifying. It was probably smaller than this van, and it was just completely blacked out, and there were bars on the window, so no one, because obviously they had a live audience, so they wanted to make sure no one could see in. And yeah, he always had to wear his helmet constantly, and yeah, I remember that. But I've known Jeremy and James my whole life.
Do you like them?
I do, yeah. And Jeremy has 3 kids, and so when we were all younger, we used to see the kids all the time. And yeah, like I said, I've known them for a very long time, so they've always been sort of weirdly a part of my life, I guess.
And you seem to have that relationship with James from videos that I've seen, that you don't mind giving him a prod in the side either.
Oh my gosh, always. Yeah. James to me is almost like one of my uncles, I guess.
Uncle James, yeah.
Uncle James.
What do you watch the content that he's kind of doing? Because it's quite funny in the sense that everyone's just been sucked into the world of YouTube, where he's now got his Planet of Gin channel, and I think it's Lucy that helps him out running that, who is maybe ex-DriveTribe, am I right in saying? So it's all kind of come from that family and all doing it. What content do you actually watch? What is it that you turn on the TV and put on?
God, that's incredible. I actually am not, this is really bad. I'm really not a big TV watcher. I'm a proper like comfort show person. Do you know what I mean? So I'll just get on Netflix and I'll just reruns of Friends. Let me watch that for the 17th time. Yeah, I'm not a big watcher. I like to be busy. I like to be really busy, and I'm kind of go insane if I'm not busy.
Why do you think you never watched that show growing up? Was it because you heard about each one before it actually went out?
With the Top Gear ones, I just think it was just not something that would interest me. I know that sounds really bad, but I do think it was much more steered towards boys. And I didn't play with little Hot Wheels when I was younger. I didn't go go-karting for my birthday. So cars just weren't for me.
Would you ever watch any of the other stuff though? Because as I say, when you've only got like an hour where you're trying to talk to someone about everything and you love cars, you just want to get all the car questions out constantly. But I remember one of my favourite videos I've ever seen of your dad was actually on a shipping container, and he was on this giant boat and he was talking about the world of shipping. Okay. Would any of that stuff, would you ever watch those kind of documentaries?
Yeah, actually, that's the stuff we would sit down and watch together, because those tend to be the things that he was really proud of and really like put a lot, not that he wasn't proud of Top Gear, please don't get me wrong, but that thing was going on for years, and that was just kind of every day, I guess. Whereas some of like engineering connections and all of that kind of stuff, he put a lot into and was really proud of them and wanted us to see them. And so then, of course, we would sit down and watch it all together. So those I watched, and like Brainiac, like I said, he loved Brainiac. And I just remember our swimming pool being filled with custard, and genuinely one of my earliest memories.
Tell me about that, go on.
It's such
Do you want the heater on as well again?
I'm okay. Actually.
You're all right.
Yeah,
okay, I'm checking.
I've got my fluffy Uggs on. I'll be okay. I just remember we had a really like old swimming pool at the top of a hill that was like green and disgusting, and they, for some kind of, in the name of science, I guess, filled it with custard. And I mean filled it to the brim, because the idea was, can you walk across it? And you can, if you want to know, you can walk across custard. And I just remember And it's quite weird growing up with that and that being his job. Like that's work.
That's my point. That's what I'm trying to get an insight of. You spoke about like your girl mates, your boy mates growing up, and like conversations like we're talking now about, do you give them an insight into the videos? But like I'm picturing this like conversation somewhere one day, whether it be with whoever friends, of just like, yeah, my dad did this, my dad did that. Yeah, I got home, my dad was walking across a pool of custard.
Yeah. Pretty weird. Yeah.
Is it weird having to say that to people when it's so different from the stuff that you get to hear? Do you ever feel like it creates a little bit of a rift?
Not a rift, I guess, but yeah, it is odd when most people's parents have proper jobs, like normal jobs, and mine's just doesn't.
There's a fantastic guy that I've had in the back of the van called Colin Furs. He's huge on YouTube, 30 million subscribers, and he's an inventor.
Right.
And like, honestly, for his kids growing up, like it's just like, oh yeah, dad like built a ring of fire at the weekend, or like filled a car with water and like drove it down the road, and it was like sloshing out to the side. And it very much, it's so funny because YouTube nowadays, people think there's concepts and ideas that are new, and they pretty much are. But in some way, shape or form, they do go back to, they take something from those early TV shows, like growing up when we were all younger. Like everyone at the minute is obsessed with rebuilding crash damaged cars. I'm completely sure that as much as you guys have been tinkering and modifying and changing bits, I'm waiting for the first one to appear on the DriveTribe channel at some point. But again, that harks back to almost like wheeler dealers trading up, and people don't make that connection with the crash damage thing, but it is actually there. It's crazy, like coming home, pool of custard. What a childhood, eh?
Yeah, no, it was interesting. And I guess it's not until you get a little bit older and you have a bit of hindsight that you realise that it wasn't quite normal. But it was fun.
Is there anything that you'd have done differently growing up? Because you went to university in Bristol, right? And that was when you studied English there?
Yes.
Are you happy with like all of that? Or is there anything that you would tell Izzy 10 years ago to have gone and got stuck into or done slightly differently?
Honestly, I would have made my parents take me go-karting, and I would have gone down racing route. Like I would love to be in the women's series now, but I'm too old because I'm 24. So it's kind of too late for me. But honestly, if I could actually tell like 10-year-old me, I'd say go and get in a go-kart.
That's so funny. She made that connection earlier with like, the boys come up to my dad because it's the boys that go in that direction first. When you're younger, and it is completely true, like literally just true. And the girls tend to go towards the horses and all the rest of it. But no doubt you've literally done this thing where you're like, yep, horses, whoop, cars, and gone straight to them. So that enjoyment that you see on the TV, was that when you were like in the car with Abby not that long ago then that kind of spark ignited?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I'm really lucky this year with DriveTribe, just being able to drive so many different cars, like from pickup trucks to the Subaru and the Evo. And the Mini is probably my favourite thing I've done this year, just because I'm getting the time to get to know this car. Even being on track I've done 2 track days in it now. And even that time, by the end of the first day, I was like, yeah, I love this. And I know I can get better at this. And this is a craft that I could hone this craft and get good at it. So that's why I'm saying I wish I'd had those feelings when I was like 10 and I could do it in a go-kart, and then I could work my way up. And then I mean, I'd love to be in the women's series now. It's just too late.
You said earlier about like having the whole crash thing in the back of your mind. Is that the case when you're actually on track, thinking about where your braking zone is? Is it still in there, or is it in the pit lane?
It's probably more in the pit lane. And then when I'm on track, I'm just very much.
I was going to say, do you think it makes a difference to your time, or do you think you forget when you hit the track?
I think I probably do forget once I'm actually in the car. And then also it's very personal when it's just you in the car. You kind of don't really think about anyone or anything else. It's just you in the car.
Would you get in a car when you were younger with your dad?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh my gosh, we've done handbrake turns around roundabouts. Sorry, I know that's incredibly illegal. You might have to cut that out. But we have, yeah, he's an idiot.
Would you call him a little bit idiot or daredevil? Where's the line?
Idiot.
Is that? Do you think that's why he ended up being the stigma of the crash guy of the 3? There was the slow one, the buffoon, and the crasher.
He has that thing that racing drivers have.
C-Rad.
Where they just don't have the fear. They don't have that. Everyone has that line where it's like, okay, I know where the line is. he just doesn't have that. And I mean that. And that's not me. Obviously, he's an idiot, but also he really genuinely will just go and go and go.
Mr. Matt Armstrong, I'm thinking of you right now because I've seen it in my friend. Like, you can almost see, like, you know, when you take a photo with a camera and there's sometimes a little red dot in someone's eye, like that happens when they're out on the track. It's insane.
And he's a very good driver. Obviously, he's been doing it for a long time, but he has never lost, even with the amount of crashes that he's had, 2 of which were really quite bad. He has not lost that. And I think it stems from a love for cars and for driving. And he wants to push the limit always.
Was that second crash that you referred to, the 2 big one, was that the Rimac one?
Yeah. So for me, in the moment, the Rimac one was a lot worse because I was 17, I think. And I was actually in the car with my mum when we got the call that he'd crashed. And
not again.
So it was, literally, come on, Rich. But no, because obviously it was on like speakerphone in the car, and we had one call from, I think maybe Andy Willman, maybe, saying what happened, but very much like, it's okay, it's fine, but this has happened. He's spun off a mountain, the car's on fire, but it's fine, everything's fine. And then it's when Jeremy then called, and that was then a little bit more scary because it was like Jeremy phoned Mindy saying, it's not great. He's fine, but it's not great. And I think there was just that big understanding because on the first crash, it was very much like Jeremy and James were speaking to my mum a lot because they saw it and they were there, and a lot of people were obviously like cushioning the blow, but they were very much like, no, this is what happened and it's really quite serious, Mind. So that was scary because obviously then I was with her and it was like, what do we do now? So my mum was like on a plane going to see him and whatever. But like I said, he was fine. He's ridiculously lucky.
They all play it off like even mates do together, like me and 3 of my mates that I could pick out, or definitely the lads that I've been away with on road trips and stuff like that, and we've created car films. The boys that you've grown up with, the guys all play it off like, oh, Kim, like screw each other. They've all got that attitude. But do you think they really care about each other, like brothers almost?
I think if you've been, they've worked together for 20 years. I think if you spent that much time together, and also time in the weirdest places, in the toughest places, like in rainforests and deserts and whatever, then you do sort of have a bond, I guess. And I think they would admit that, like they are bonded by that. But then they've also had 20 years together and they're sick of each other, which is so fair enough.
Do you find it funny seeing, because obviously where you knew parts of their personality growing up, and like we all discover things that we weren't quite aware of, like I'd have never put you in central London ever.
Really?
Just never. No. I wouldn't have. Like I had this vision of here, like you bump in, but then you learn something different. James was like central London and now lives in the middle of the countryside near his pub. And I think I'm right. Jeremy's obviously moved to his farm. When you had that insight, like growing up as a kid, are they all very different people? Not now to who they were maybe when they were like in the Top Gear days, the early days. But your dad's always loved the countryside.
Yeah. I think they've probably all changed, as anyone does in 20 years. And also, Jeremy's had kids that are all grown up now. They've got kids of their own. I think everything. They're also that bit older than Rich that I think I didn't really realise until I got older. They're sort of like 10 years older than Rich is. So they're like when we did the shoot at James's pub, and I think Mike was saying, would Rich ever get a pub? And yeah, I think he probably would. But in sort of 10 years, he's not done yet. He still wants to drive cars and do stupid stuff.
Is
but
that
I think
why he's now more involved with DriveTribe and the other 2 left that side of things? Do you think they're done with their car years?
I don't think they'll ever be done. They all 3 of them love cars. That's why the show was so successful, because they're so authentic. I just think they're moving on to other things. Whereas I think Rich has still got that. He's got a bit more to go, I think, and loves the workshop. I love the workshop. It's chaos, but it's so much fun.
Explain the Smallest Cog. So how long has this been around now, and like how much has it been part of your life?
It's a good question that I don't know the answer to. Yeah, it's been around for
4 years. There we go.
That'll do. Yeah. No, it's great. I've only been really into it recently because obviously I've been more into cars and more into learning about cars and getting to know all the mechanics and their knowledge.
You don't have to know all the mechanics. Trust me, I absolutely love cars. I'm useless.
So I didn't realise this. So many people don't. So I've got friends that can name they can hear an engine and they can tell me what car it is, like the model and all the weird numbers and letters. Right. Okay. Perfect. So like you, they can just name anything. But then if they looked under a bonnet at something that was broken, they wouldn't have a clue.
Welcome to your new friend. Because I fit into that camp perfectly.
I just kind of thought everyone knew everything, but they really don't.
No
do they?
idea. No, not a Scooby clue.
Yeah, but it's quite fun. Like I said, I love the mechanic side of it as well and learning how things work. For me, that's why I love Land Rovers as well, because they're so, I don't know, they're just so interesting when you look underneath them. They're just, like I've just bought a Range Rover, which was really stupid. I'm going to put it out there. It was a really stupid idea, okay? It was 800 quid. So for me, I'm thinking, amazing.
All of you that were just picturing an 85 grand Vogue, screw you.
No. It's an 800 quid L322 and I love it. It's proper, like, I'm going to call it like Clarkson spec, you know, like the green, that vibe. But we had a look underneath it the other day and now I know why it's 800 quid. It's 95% rust. It's chaos under there. But I can't wait to get my hands on it and like the satisfaction of doing it yourself and driving it around thinking, yeah, I did that.
You've spoken a lot about all of those cars and there must have been, like, growing up, you must have just not even looked at what was on the driveway sometimes. That had come home. Must have been absolutely crazy. The supercars do anything for you? What was that like driving the first supercar the other day with the McLaren Artura?
The McLaren was lovely, don't get me wrong. But they don't really do it for me. They're not listening. Yeah, fair. Yeah, they don't really do it for me, if I'm honest. I like classics. I really love a Ferrari 812.
I hated mine.
Whoa. Oh my God, are we going to fall out? No, I'm joking. I've never driven one, so I can't tell you if I.
It's fine. Everyone else is screaming with you. It's just I've been very fortunate enough to be able to buy some of these cars. And that, out of the 4 Ferraris that I've been lucky enough to have, was the biggest letdown.
Why?
Do you know what?
I don't know if I want to know. I might be upset.
No, it's because it's not what people think. It's you mentioned you like classics and people like the mechanics and kind of when you hear the greatest car journalists even of all time, and that's excluding obviously the guys that are big parts of your life, but some of the guys I grew up watching on YouTube, we got Chris Harris on cars and Jethro Bovington and like people that have just obsessed and like wrote with Evo and everything. They love feel like hydraulic steering. They like things that feel connected to the wheels. And like with a Ferrari 458, and I've still got the original Top Gear recording on my mum's old Skybox because I was like, I'm going to own one of those, and was lucky enough did. Everything, it's like modern mechanical. Like the steering wheel is still hydraulically connected to the wheels. You can feel the bumps. You can feel the undulations in the road. The 812 is like, it's like I want to make that mug roll along the table. So I'm going to put like 4 wheels in it, but then it'd just fall over. So then you've got to do something else to counteract it and something else to counteract it and something else to counteract it because it was never meant to be on 4 wheels. They've put so much power in a car that's the wrong shape. It doesn't work. And every time you drive it, it's like all the computers and the systems are trying to make it stay on the road. Oh, okay. So it's numb rather than fun. Because you can't ever, I described it this way, and I'm probably going on a bit too much about it now.
No, I'm intrigued.
You could put it into a corner 20 times at the same speed with the same steering lock, and you would get 20 different results. You can't get used or feel comfortable to an 812. They're nuts. I get why people like them. They also don't sound as good as everyone thinks they do.
Oh my gosh,
not from the inside. I'm so sorry. However, a 488 Pista or a 458 or something mid-engined, engine in the middle, behind the glass at the back, get all the weight out of it, give it hydraulic steering. Piece de resistance, like that is the recipe, or like a GT3. That's my experience of that, and I had to say it.
Everything.
I need to drive one.
I know.
And also, Also, because I don't know what I'm doing under the bonnet, this was the most annoying bit because I like to drive them a lot, which means that I can't keep them long because I put loads of miles on them and then have a crisis after I've seen how much they've depreciated. But the 812 doesn't have an oil sensor. All the others do. And it was someone that told me, have you checked the oil in that recently? Because they drink them like crazy. And I'm like one of these people that isn't in the workshop learning all of this stuff. And I'm like, well, the light hasn't come on. And they're like, no, you need to like check the dipstick under the bonnet kind of thing. I was like, all right. And like, so I got Louis, who is 16, that lives next door to me and does know how to do cars, to come down, open the garage door. We pulled up the dipstick and wiped it off. And there was literally no oil in it. Like, and I had to check it every time we drove it because the V12 drank so much oil. And like, if you just want to go to the gym in it, you can't because he's like, right, bonnet up. Is it got oil in it? No. Honestly, the most disappointing car I've ever owned. I'm so sorry.
God, I think you just
just absolutely. But what is your dream car from doing everything? What is the kind of stuff that you would love to see in an Izzy garage, and kind of like after you've kind of got to grips more with some of the passions and types of cars that you're liking to drive? What do you like and what does your dad like? There must be some crossovers, but there must also be some separations.
No, definitely crossovers.
Defender.
Obviously Defenders, Porsche as well.
So now you're going to ask me what that is, aren't you?
I'm trying to work out what it is. Oh, it's Lewis's car. It's a BMW.
Yeah, you got there first.
It's a really
definitely a bit.
It's a souped up BMW. It's got 700 horsepower in it.
700.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts in that thing because it's quite. I think it's a 240i that was parked outside the van.
Wiggles on the
So
road.
would you like to drive that?
I have driven it, but not in scary mode because I'm too scared of it. But I'm really loving the whole like mapping cars thing. I did not understand that world until recently. And I didn't realise that like a BMW, which has like the best engine ever, will come out of the factory and it's like, and it's doing like a tiny percentage of what it can do because for safety reasons and stuff. And if you just rewire some stuff and you clock into its brain, you can make it go really quickly. I did not know that. That's amazing. So now I really want a BMW and I want to make it into some kind of monster.
That's growing up with brainiacs, that is. Can I make this car 5,000 horsepower?
No, but I didn't know that was. And if you play with it enough, you can have a completely unique car that no one has. Amazing. That's what I want to do. I think that's so cool. So maybe I'll do that. But in terms of my dream cars, really similar to Rich, like Defenders, love them, will always love them, will always have them. Porsches, love them. I really like kind of the older ones, like the older 911s and the ones, you know, like with the whale tail on the back. Oh, brilliant. Why have you got everything?
I will show you, see if you're a fan.
What you want is an 800 quid L322. That's what you want, really, deep down.
My whale tail.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's nice, isn't it? But the window falls down when you hit a pothole. So,
that's not great.
Stuff like that happens and you'll be driving along and it just disappears.
Yeah, that's not brilliant.
See, maybe we've got similar taste in cars.
Yeah, I think so. But also for me, I don't know enough yet. I haven't driven enough. I haven't seen enough. I haven't heard enough to know what I like and what I don't like. And that's something I never want to portray like I know what I'm talking about because I have no idea and I'm just learning as I go. And what I really hope my content shows is that you don't have to know everything to be interested in cars and whatever that is, because I love F1 as well. I'm massive into my F1, but I really don't know enough about it, but I'm learning and I want to learn. I've started writing about it because I want other people to understand in the way I understand, which is just, I don't like all this.
Because you're involved with Red Bull, right?
Yeah, I do a little bit of work for them. We are filming a show that's almost like behind the scenes of their show runs. So when they take their older cars out and do really cool stunts and stuff with them. So yeah, I love so many little parts of the car world because it's so big and there are so many little corners of it. But I don't know anything.
So it sounds like your chapters are being written at the minute.
Yeah, but I really hope that people feel like they can get involved even if they don't know everything. You don't have to know every make, model, XYZ of cars. You don't have to know a car by their engine sound.
And it also sounds like you were kind of interested in learning a lot of the YouTube space. Obviously, a lot of what you do is now putting videos live. How much does it affect your mood if that video does well or not?
Really doesn't bother me that much. I know Mike, if you sit down with Mike, it really gets to him. Like, it really affects him. And I get that because the whole YouTube thing is very much his craft and he's very good at it. And he pushed, like, that's his push in DriveTribe. And he's done amazing with it because he is a big reason why DriveTribe does so well. For me, I just sit in the car and yap. So yeah, it's great when they do well. It's really good. But for me, I had a great day filming it, so I don't really mind. I've had fun. And also I think if I back the content I've put out and I can sit down and say to myself, yeah, I like that. That was good. I felt good about that. I did the best I could do. And I don't really care.
So then the other thing that you alluded to that's a big part of your life, filming, DriveTribe, podcast.
Yes.
When you've got that stuff going on, why did you start to do the podcast with your dad? Whose idea was it and why did that happen? And then tell us a bit about it.
It was, to be honest, it was kind of a mixed bag, really. Rich was speaking to Global, who we do the podcast with, and they were quite keen for him to do a podcast. He was a bit unsure, didn't really know, because obviously the obvious one is a car thing, and that's been talked about a lot. Yeah, with like all three of them. The fact of the matter is they're all three too busy right now, and that's not to say it might not happen in the future, but they're flat out. They don't have time for that. Rich it wasn't the right time to do a car thing. He has a lot of other car things on the go, but was interested in the podcast idea. And that's when I joined as almost like a researcher, really, and talked about maybe doing something on men's mental health, because it was a similar time to when his Lake District video went viral.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, and he was talking...
My friend Nick filmed that.
Oh, really?
I know, Nick Box, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Rich has always been to the Lake District, and he's always considered his brain a lot. Like, he's quite a big...
BMW's back.
I'm just going to wait. Because it's so annoying, that car. Anyway, he's always been a very thoughtful person and has considered his mental health a lot and talks about it a lot. Obviously because of the crash, and has had to literally rebuild his brain and talk about his brain constantly, because that's the only way. It's not like he's recovering from a broken leg and you can watch it recover. He has to tell you if his brain is recovering, which is a bit of a weird one in itself. But anyway, I said, well, that video went really well. You are a really good person to talk about men's mental health, because a lot of people see you as kind of quite laddie because you're in the car world. Top Gear was quite a laddie show. You would be quite a good, dare I say it, people look up to him. And so maybe if you could be a little bit open, that would be quite helpful for some people. And so I came in as an assistant producer just to help move things along. Like I said, he's incredibly busy. So to navigate him, just getting to a studio in London to do a couple of recordings was a bit of a challenge. So the first one we did a pilot, I sat in and had a microphone just in case. And it became interesting to have two, what we thought would be completely different opinions. So like a 55-year-old man versus 23, 24-year-old girl. Surely our opinions on topics are going to be completely different. What we found out as the series went on was how similar they were. And obviously we're related, so that does help. But I think more generally how you can talk about a topic like depression, anxiety, anything like that, and how similar your thoughts can be is actually really comforting, I think. And really, mental health is quite a unifying experience because, let's be honest, we all have pretty similar emotions. So for me, I think it was really nice to be able to talk cross-generationally because, people have sons and daughters, and it would be quite nice if they found a way to be able to talk to their 20-year-olds about what they're going through and relate it to themselves. So that's kind of where the podcast was born out of. And then we talk to guests every week, and we do weave some car stuff into there. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I've seen Fernie was on recently as well.
Yeah, she followed me on Instagram and I lost it. I was like, this is the best day of my life. I followed her back. I messaged her. I was like, is there any chance? And she was like, yeah, I'd love to. And then bam, she's on the podcast. Best day of my life. She's so cool. So yeah, we'd obviously weave some car stuff in there.
It definitely is always going to happen. I think it sounds like a lot of the story, a lot of your story has been car stuff weaving in, whether like your alter ego likes it or not, and it's become that. So like as we come to like a conclusion of today, do you set goals for like your chapters of this book that's unfolding, or do you just let it write itself?
Completely let it write itself. Completely. Because I think I'm really lucky to be able to be in a position to try lots of different things, whether that's within the car world, whether that's within the media world. Every opportunity that comes my way, I'm going to grab it because I don't know what it is I want to do in the future. So for me, it's just working that out. And I think that's the one thing that my dad would always say to me, because of the way he got his job, was just take every opportunity because your luck might run out. So go for it while you've got it. And you need to work. He always says, if you get something via luck or via opportunity, you need to work twice as hard so that you can look yourself in the mirror and say to yourself, I earned that. Even if that luck wasn't there, I've worked double as hard, so I've earned it to keep it. So I think that's what I'm going to keep doing. I'm not going to write goals because I don't know what they'd be, if I'm totally honest. I'm just going to keep trying stuff and try not to be too yappy. I can yap for England.
Well, thank you for coming on and yapping for England in the back of my van. When Izzy was actually getting in the van earlier, Rich came past and looked into it and said, "You're getting in the back of that van for a couple of hours." And then he looked me and Toby up and down and went, "Okay, chaps." It's always a weird one to get past that, and that might be the strangest one, is being like, it's fine.
I swear.
I know it's a van, but it's the part of the concept that does get people's eyebrows to go up for a few seconds. But thank you for trusting me, and thank you for having a good yap in the back of the van. It's been fun, and best of luck with everything on DriveTribe.
Thank you so much. Thank you.